I get comments I've never gotten before, of like people saying, you're too big. I like what you do. I like what you say. I appreciate your reporting. I appreciate what you're doing on the podcast. But why so muscular? Do you believe that is working against you? And why do you talk about the self-defense training so much? Why do you put that toxic masculinity out there? And what I don't understand is, and why I'm very interested in the work that you do, I don't understand how you can get to a better place without somebody having to be destroyed. And that masculinity has to go, which really has fed into this group of males that you're talking about. And even this phenomenon now that we're hearing about called involuntary celibacy, the incels. It does seem that the search for a correction has created a new problem.
Yeah, it's interesting that you made that, comment about being too big. First thing I noticed about you when I looked you up, because I wasn't too familiar with Chris Como. I mean, I'm a Canadian. I don't follow politics and I don't usually watch the news. I looked at the photograph. I'm like, he looks like a guy I would sit down and have a beer with, right? Like that's the first thing that I think when I look at you. Big neck, broad shoulders. You look like a guy that knows how to be competent in the, the realm of the world, especially if something were to happen, right? And I appreciate that in men. I like guys that are good at being men, and I like good men. To the point of combat, that you brought up, one of the chapters in my book that I talk about is I think men need to get into combat sports. We have a society of culturally weak, soft men. I see men walking around on a routine basis with female breast tissue, shaped like pears that don't look like they would be able to handle much if a bad situation would come their way. Women like strong, virtuous, masculine men. They like a guy that can speak softly but carries a big stick. We know that as a matter of fact, based on how women choose men. We know that men are looked upon more favorably when they're more competent looking, when they're stronger looking. If you have two men walking down the street, one that's soft and weak. I had a conversation the other day on my podcast with a man that was an incel, 110 pounds, 5'6". He didn't understand the importance of going to the gym. But if he was walking down the street and I was walking down the street, I'm 6'2", 215, 218 pounds. And there was a bad guy coming the other way. Who do you think he would pick as a target? He's going to pick the softer, weaker man. I think it's important for men to become the best version of themselves, to optimize themselves so that they can live a fulfilled, wholesome, and life of choices. Because a lot of guys today, they don't have any choices. They're sleepwalking through life with their eyes closed, hoping something better is going to come along. And they ask questions. And, you brought up the point of the incel thing. So back to that. And they bring up the question like, I don't understand why women don't respond to me. I don't understand why women don't like me. I'm a really nice guy, right? And it's like, having a conversation. I had a 90-minute conversation with this guy on my podcast, the incel. He just had so much difficulty understanding the importance of improving the optics and the physicality of strength and the looks of masculinity. And I think calling that today toxic, or saying that getting into combat sports is toxic masculinity, is absolutely absurd. Because who does society turn to when the shit hits the fan? Big, strong men. Who do we turn to if another country comes and invades? I mean, I see men laying their lives on the line here in Ukraine today. All the women and children have left. They move them all to safety. It's the men that are disposable, and it's the women that are protected. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that a society functions better when men are the best versions of themselves and women are the feminine versions of themselves. I think we blur these lines now, and we tell women to become more like men, and we tell men to become more like women.
Well, some people see that as balance. And while I have made a lot of the choices that you are promoting, I certainly understand that you don't have to look like The Rock to be a real man. And very often, we're not in medieval society anymore where we should have to think that we're going to have to defend ourselves with our hands. Now, again, yes, I've made that choice. Yes, it is important to me. But maybe that's a function of my inadequacy. I don't know. But I'm saying that I'm open to, you can be way more virtuous as a man than I am, but look nothing like me and not be able to take a punch as well. I'm okay with both. With both. I've made my own choices. Absolutely. They fall in line with what you're defining. I'm open to a different definition. Where we come together and where I see great need is that I do believe that there is, just like there are crises among women on different levels with different parts of their persuasion and their persona, I see that with men too, but it's not allowed. We're not allowed to say what you're saying right now. Men are struggling. They feel they can't be their best selves. They've lost a sense of identity and place, that there's an appreciation gap, that men only feel valued if they are literally of quantitative value, that they're bringing in cash. Otherwise, they can't compete. It's not enough to be gorgeous and have biceps the size of softballs if you're broke. But they can't say that because it's not their time to complain. And I keep feeling that there's an audience of underserved males out there, and it's how I came to you, Richard Cooper, which is, in researching this, you speak to these men. And we'll talk more about how, but what do you make of that suggestion that there are a lot of men out there who are confused, worried, feel targeted, and feel incapable of being what they want to be?
Well, there's always three words that I, respond to in that realm, and it's do the work. Men must become. We have to make something out of ourselves. And I think that message has been lost. We've been telling men for decades now through a function of media, Hollywood, society, marketing, education, culture, religion, you're good enough. You're good enough. Just be yourself and the right gal will come along. Good things will happen, if you just wait. And it's never been that way. Men have to compete in the world. We have to do the work. We have to compete. We have to make something out of ourselves. There's a stand-up comic, Chris Rock, in his special Tambourine. He said something that went absolutely viral, and I've tweeted it a number of times, and it blows up. He says, only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. Men are only loved under the condition that they provide something along that line, right? And it's funny, and it's gone viral because there's truth to it, right? We are not the same. Men and women are different, and that's totally fine. And I think that if we learn to embrace the differences between men and women and understand how masculinity is valuable and understand how femininity is valuable and how the masculine should protect the feminine and how the feminine should complement the life of the masculine sort of thing, we can work together in a much more productive way instead of doing this stuff all the time where it's like, oh, we have this workplace issue. We have this inequality here. And I don't think that the issue is of equality anymore. I think we've moved past that. I really believe that men and women can do anything. There's, with some slight differences because men are physically stronger than women, but we can pretty much do anything that the other can if we really want to. It's really, I really struggle with this because it looks more like a supremacy movement now. It doesn't look like a movement towards equality. It seems like it's moving towards the subjugation of men. Bend the knee to everything we say. You're always wrong. If we point at you, then you must apologize. And I think that gets exhausting. And there's certain scenarios where a man must apologize. And I think there's certain, scenarios where if you've done something wrong, then you need to correct that and own it. But it seems like a lot of it is empty. I really hope you guys enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full-length podcast, you can find that over here, that clip's from. If you're newer to the channel, make sure you hit subscribe over here and pin down below in the top comment. You'll find a bunch of useful links to my website, my supplement line, books, and a bunch of other stuff. Have an amazing day. Peace out.